welcome to a conversation with Dr. Monica Mahajan. She is a director internal medicine at Max Healthcare Hospital, and of course, one of the frontline workers, fighters, really during the COVID situation. So we're going to be talking to her about two things. One, of course, the all-important question about the vaccines, and also what is the update on the COVID situation? Because now is really a time when people are, figuring out the after effects. Those who've had COVID, how are they dealing with the long-term impact of COVID, post-COVID situation. So that's something I would also like to talk to her about. So welcome back, Dr. Monica. And you've been pretty busy. We've had a couple of chats, but have you managed to get any time off at all? Or?
Priya, I'm planning a vacation pretty soon. So let's hope the vaccine gets rolled out and I'm confident enough to go on a vacation.
That also means some good news that the cases are perhaps lessening. Is this all media hype, or is it actually the cases are getting less?
It's a mixed bag, actually. There's good news in the sense that the recovery rate in India is the highest. As per the government data, we've got a recovery rate of now 96.36, which is the highest in the world. The good news is the cases have gone down. But a little alarming news is that some of the states have shown a recent spike in the cases, especially states like Maharashtra or Chhattisgarh or Kerala. And the health minister has actually written to them in terms of warning them that why is there now a spike of cases happening in these states. So we still have to be wary of the situation and not let our guard down, because the moment we see the cases going down, somehow the general public tends to become a little less sure about what needs to be done. They become lax about the precautions that need to be done. And with all the travel happening during the December vacations, what we've seen is that now there is a mild spike in cases happening in 4 states in India. So overall, the numbers are down. The recovery data is excellent, actually, compared to the rest of the data in the world. But at the same time, we don't want another spike happening. So we still have to be very, very cautious. We still have to maintain that social distancing, and we have to take all the precautions, all said and done.
Which brings me to the all-important question of the vaccines. We've heard a lot of controversy, a lot of speculation. I think last time when we talked, there was also, I think the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine was in play, but now we also have the Covishield. So what is your take on both the vaccines first?
Let me say that vaccines have been there for so many diseases and they have saved millions of lives. So irrespective of whether we're talking of the COVID vaccine or we are talking about vaccinations in general, the only strategy to fight a pandemic is vaccination. So the most effective way of getting rid of this virus and fighting the pandemic will be vaccination, irrespective of whatever vaccine that we are talking of. Now, the government of India and the DCGI have approved 2 vaccines. The Covishield is the Serum Institute vaccine, which is the same as the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine in India. It's called Covishield. And the other is the Covaxin, which is the Bharat Biotech ICMR vaccine. So these are the ones which are approved as of now in the Indian setting. There are some which are still in the approval stage. They may or may not come. There is Pfizer, there is Zydus, and so on and so forth. But the ones which are now available is Covishield and Covaxin, and that is what we are waiting for in terms of getting the first shots done.
So let's take them one by one. Let's first talk about the Oxford one, Covishield. Yeah. It's had phase 3 trials, if I'm not this thing. What have you heard about it? Because people are saying that since this is not manufactured in India, I mean, it's manufactured in India, but not really developed in India, is this not as effective as an indigenous Indian-made vaccine?
We are really not looking at the technology. We don't restart inventing a wheel all over again. Once you have the genetic code of the virus, once you have the technology, whether it is in any other corner of the world, we have enough manufacturing capacity in India to use that technology and manufacture on our own. And the proud fact is that we don't just manufacture for ourselves, but India also sends these vaccines to a number of other countries as well. So having said that, whether the technology is India-based or whether it is technology which is coming to us from Oxford, there is very, very robust data as far as the Covishield vaccine is concerned. And that is the vaccine which is being used in a number of other countries. That is the vaccine that has undergone phase 3 trials, and it has shown very promising results. So this is a vector-based vaccine. The Serum Institute Covishield vaccine is a vector-based vaccine.
So that to my viewers.
Yeah. So I was just about to explain how the Covishield came into the picture. So this is a chimpanzee adenovector or an adenovirus. So if you attach the genetic code of the COVID virus onto piggyback another harmless virus, which is in this case the chimpanzee adenovirus, this virus facilitates the entry of the genetic code into the human being and forms the spike protein or a portion of the COVID virus inside us. That works as a trigger. It works as a stimulator for our immune system to wake up, and it forms antibodies so that the next time that you are attacked by the COVID virus, you already have your guns and your ammunition in place, which is your antibody and your memory cells in the body have been activated by the vaccine. And the next time that the virus attacks you, you already have your preformed immune weapon, vector-based vaccine, which is Covishield or the ChAdOx vaccine. ChAdOx, the CH stands for the chimpanzee, and the AD stands for adenovirus. The OX is obviously the Oxford part. So the ChAdOx equivalent in India is called as Covishield. It's a viral vector vaccine. The Covaxin, on the other hand, which is the Bharat Biotech ICMR vaccine, is proudly enough an Indian technology. It's a very good vaccine. It's an inactivated vaccine. So inactivated vaccine means that the virus has been destroyed somehow with the use of chemicals or radiation or any other form wherein the virus is no longer live, but it still has enough genetic material inside so that when we inject an inactivated vaccine into a human being, it stimulates the immune system again and forms antibodies and memory cells and provides immunity to us. So these are the two forms of the vaccines that we are talking of, Priya. One is a vector-based vaccine, which is the Covishield, AstraZeneca, and the other is in terms of a inactivated vaccine, which is the Bharat Biotech.
Are you worried when they say that for the Oxford vaccine, people are taking paracetamols also, for are given during the trials? That means that they must be feeling some adverse impact. Otherwise, why take it?
Paracetamol is given for practically most of the vaccinations we write as part of our prescription when we give a pneumococcal vaccine or an influenza vaccine or any other vaccine to children and adults. We always, as a co-prescription, write a paracetamol that in case when you go home, you develop any pain or fever, please go ahead and take a paracetamol. So paracetamol is not unique to this particular vaccine. Paracetamol is a standard part of the prescription that if you have pain and if you have fever, which a small percentage of people will have with all sorts of vaccines, they are free to go ahead and take paracetamol. So if we're looking at the side effect profile of any of the COVID vaccines which are available in the world as of now, we have now the CDC data for Pfizer vaccine, interestingly. And what they have reported is that out of all the people in US who've received the Pfizer vaccine, till date, almost 4,400 adverse events or reactions have been noted with this particular vaccine. So just to give you a statistic that out of that 4,400 events, almost 175 events were allergic reactions. And out of that, there were some which were severe anaphylactic reactions. Severe anaphylaxis means that you get such a severe allergic reaction that you start to choke and have breathing difficulties. But the people who actually developed an anaphylactic reaction were those who were having a background history of allergies or had had anaphylaxis to other products, whether it was seafood or whether it was in medicines. They had had history of allergies in the past. So it's not that the adverse reactions or the allergic reactions are specific again to COVID vaccines. You can have allergy to any vaccination that is administered for any purpose. But as long as the healthcare workers are aware that they have to monitor you for allergies, and as far as you're forthcoming to say that you have a history of tendency to allergies, it is safe enough to go and take the vaccine. So the protocol demands that whether we are talking of Pfizer or in India, we're talking of Covaxin or Covishield, anybody who receives the vaccine has to be monitored for the next half an hour to see for any adverse events, and only then they go home after taking the vaccination.
Are there any other dose for, before taking a vaccination that you would suggest to our viewers?
So we don't have enough data about the efficacy or the dosage of this particular vaccine in pregnant women and in people less than 18 years of age. So as of now, the recommendation and the approval is only for people above 18 years of age, and we really don't have enough trial data for children as well as in terms of pregnancy. So having said that, it is an individual choice to take the vaccination. But remember that the virus kills. So the most effective personal choice that I can make today to save myself from this virus, as well as to generate a herd immunity and do my bit to the community, would be to agree to take the vaccination. So I have to go and I have to tell my vaccination team whatever allergies I have. And once I have disclosed that history, they make a joint decision between me and the vaccination team to decide whether I am a good candidate to take the vaccination or not. But having said that, it is a wise decision to go and take the vaccine rather than not to take the vaccine. There is a lot of misinformation which is circulating on the social media, but this is our best bet as far as getting the pandemic over.
Are you apprehensive about the speed in which clearance was given, especially to Covaxin? I think that's also come up for a lot of criticism in the media, also from the politicians also.
If we were to go by the direct way in how vaccines are developed for any disease, the average duration required to do the trials, whether it is the phase 3 trials or in terms of the approval for any vaccine for a disease, it takes 5 to 15 years. So I don't think we really ever had the time to do that much of trials and testing, looking at the mortality rate that this virus is associated with. So it was always meant to be a fast track decision. It's not that this was done subconsciously. It was a conscious fast track emergency approval of these vaccines which happened. We could not have waited for 5 years and done trials on thousands and thousands of people before approving this. As long as the technology is sound, which the Covaxin technology is pretty sound, the Covishield vaccine technology is very sound, we don't have to wait for the trials to go on and keep suffering and dying of the virus. We are the trial. We are part of a larger picture, and we are part of that picture which is trying to fight the pandemic. So even if you give me another extra data of 10,000 or 30,000 patients who are part of the trial, I would be very much part of the trial and get the vaccine and get it done and over with, rather than wait another 6 months to look for trial data. So now is the time to actually go ahead and start with mass vaccination rather than to wait for more trial data to come in. We are bound to lose more time if we keep waiting for the trials, and that is what is happening in US. If they had started the vaccination drive a little early, they had all the vaccines available with them. Probably the kind of mortality and this wave of havoc that they are experiencing would not have happened if they had started their mass vaccination for the COVID a little early. So I think we should learn our lesson from US and we should start as early as possible rather than waiting for more trial data. I don't need more data. I'm quite satisfied with the kind of data that Covaxin has presented, what Covishield has presented. Even if they give me more data regarding the efficacy and side effects, I already know what the efficacy is. I already know what the side effects are. It's not really going to change the entire picture. So we would much rather start the vaccination. I'm more concerned about the dry run regarding the logistics and the last mile transport of the vaccine rather than the efficacy of the vaccine per se.
That is reassuring, because there's been, as you said, a lot of apprehensions about the, efficacy and also the side effects of the vaccine. I'm going to take a break and come back and talk to you. And the first question I'm going to ask you is which of the two vaccines you're going to take. So that's something we're going to leave you to think over while we take a short break. To a conversation with Dr. Monica Mahajan, we're of course talking to her about the hottest topic of the year, the COVID vaccines. And I'm going to ask you, Doctor, since you are the health workers and doctors are really in the front line and also the one of the first few to get it. So which, I assume it will be the Oxford vaccine, but given a choice, which one would you take?
I think both the vaccines have their potential advantages as well as disadvantages. So looking at the Oxford vaccine, there was a controversy regarding the half dosage. So
Yes.
what had happened, Priya, was that in the initial trial that was being conducted in Oxford, some part of the trial population received half the first dose and a complete second dose. And these people developed a good immune response, whereas the other part of the trial population received 2 full doses. So the result got a little varied because they were not sure whether the first dose should be a half dose and the second should be a full dose, or there should be 2 complete doses. And the results for the 2 patient populations or the trial populations was actually different. They were volunteers. They were not really patients, but they were volunteers. And the result with the half dose was called as a result of serendipity. So they were not really sure as to how good the half dose would work or the full dose would work. Now that controversy has been put to rest, and it has been decided that 2 full doses will be given. It has a very good efficacy data. And in terms of the best part about the vaccine is that even if you will get COVID despite getting the vaccination, at least the intensity of the illness will be very mild. You will not get a moderate or a severe disease. So it has very good data attached with it. As far as the Covaxin or the Bharat Biotech vaccine is concerned, it is perhaps one of the safest vaccines. As far as the side effect profile is concerned, inactivated vaccines are very, very safe vaccines. It again has a good efficacy as well as safety data. So from the safety point of view, Bharat Biotech has good safety data. It has a good efficacy data. And again, the technology of an inactivated vaccine is a good technology to bet on. So there's very little to choose from the 2 vaccines. Each has its potential advantage. Each has its potential side effects. So if I am given a choice, I can pick either of the 2 and blindly go ahead and get myself vaccinated. There's very little to choose between the 2. How these vaccines will work, whether it is Moderna, Pfizer, or Covaxin or Covishield, we will only get to know 5 years down the line as to what happened to the pandemic, what was the efficacy, and how protected did a person who get vaccinated remain. So at this point of time, I would say go ahead and choose any of these, whatever is being offered to you. If you're being offered vaccine A, don't wait for vaccine B. Go ahead and stand in the line and take vaccine A. Your chance may not even come in the line B. So why miss your chance? So whatever is being offered on the plate, go ahead and grab that. The number of vaccines are much less than the number of people who need to be vaccinated. So don't miss your chance. Either of the 2 is a very good vaccine bet to go ahead with. So you should get vaccinated.
One question about the Pfizer vaccine in terms of the technology, both Moderna and Pfizer use mRNA. That's, I believe, very new technology. So some doctors are saying that it's better to use the spike protein or the DNA vaccine that are being developed in India rather than going for a new untested technology. What do you feel about that?
The mRNA vaccine has some potential advantages in the sense that it is a very easy vaccine to manufacture, as well as in terms of the efficacy, it has a 90% plus efficacy. So mRNA vaccines are actually quite good. But then again, it is a relatively new technology. So we don't know the long-term potential problems with the mRNA vaccine. The other challenge with the Pfizer mRNA vaccine is that it is using nanoparticles to help the efficacy of the vaccine so that the vaccine is staying in the body a little longer and generating more immune response. So the vaccine itself may not be causing adverse events or reactions to the vaccine, but whenever you're using anything else to enhance the efficacy of the vaccine, whether it is a nanotechnology or anything else, it can cause more severe allergic reactions. So mRNA vaccines are a good technology, but they are a relatively new technology. Having said that, mRNA vaccines are much more easy to develop and to manufacture compared to some of the other vaccines. For example, when you have a DNA-based vaccine, which is what the Zydus vaccination is, you need a piggyback with something called as a plasmid to help the vaccine work in the body. So each technology has its potential plus points as well as in terms of negative points. So mRNA vaccines actually have a very good efficacy, but they are an entirely different technology. And in terms of the long-term safety of the mRNA vaccines, we are not too sure about that at this point of time.
Just one quick question is, before we end, is the update on the COVID cases. You know, we've now got this new UK strain also. People are saying that this is it's more easy to get, but it's not as fatal as the earlier strain. Do you agree with that? And how worried are you about it?
So all viruses are known to change their structure from time to time and to mutate. So that is what has happened with the COVID virus. And the UK strain has 2 amino acids which have gotten changed in the spike protein of the virus at 2 positions of the spike protein. So with this mutant virus has 2 characteristics which are different from the routine COVID virus. One, it is a little more contagious. So if I was to put the value for the normal virus at say 100%, the amount of contagious potential of this mutant virus would be somewhere like 160% or 170%. So it's 60 to 70 times 60 to 70% more contagious, not times, but rather percent more contagious compared to the normal COVID virus. At the same time, what is there in this mutant virus is that there is a shift in the patient population base. So this mutant strain is affecting the children and adolescents more than the elderly compared to what data we had with the original COVID virus or the SARS-CoV-2 was affecting the middle and the elderly, whereas this particular virus is affecting the adolescent population more. So there is a population shift which has happened with this mutant strain. So the contagious potential of the virus is more. But then having said that, since the adolescents have a better immune response compared to the elderly, they are able to fight the infection better. So in terms of the amount of illness that it is causing, it may be a little milder strain. But in terms of the potential contagious part of this virus, since it is highly contagious, and that is the reason that UK has gone in for a shutdown, and we are tracking actively the mutant strain because this is much more contagious compared to the originally circulating COVID virus.
Also the long-term impact, after effects of COVID rather, because now we're seeing that's the next big challenge really. People are feeling weak, people are, developing other complications. What is, if you can add something to that?
The patients who've now started coming to our OPD are the ones who've had COVID in the last 3 to 6 months, and we are noticing a post-COVID syndrome. The post-COVID syndrome can vary anywhere from mild body aches and fatigue and tiredness to people who have extreme shortness of breath and have had some amount of fibrosis developing in their lungs because of the scarring of the lungs that has happened because of COVID. So the long-term consequences of COVID may be just in terms of a feeling of fatigue, a feeling of less concentration, memory-related issues, depression, to the more severe forms of complications or the long-term impacts of the virus on the lungs, as well as on the heart. There have been people who have had issues with the heart because of the infection that they had a few months back. And there are people who've had issues with the lungs in terms of the scarring which has been left in their lungs. But majority of the people who've had mild illness have fully recovered. Some percentage do have a lot of physical as well as mental, emotional challenges which are still persisting. And there is a small percentage who have had long-term effect on the lungs. So we are now offering them medication. We are asking them to do a lot of breathing exercises. And we are also offering them vaccination against influenza and pneumonia and other kinds of vaccination so that at least we protect their lungs from other sorts of pneumonia happening while we are waiting for the COVID vaccine to come out.
What is your advice to someone who's had COVID, apart from, of course, taking a lot of rest?
I think it has to be a gradual exercise routine. You have to get back into shape, and the more breathing exercises that you do, the more the expansion of the lungs happens. It is better that way in terms of building upon your stamina as well as in terms of your breathing capacity. So you will have to consult with your doctor, and once he goes and gives a go-ahead for starting vaccination, starting exercises, you have to have an exercise plan in mind. So start in the first gear and then gradually go on to the fourth gear. You can't start exercising again once you've had COVID in the fourth gear. You have to have a gradual, structured exercise program, which has to have a lot of emphasis on breathing. So from a simple yoga and pranayama based breathing exercise program to starting with functional exercises and then going on to cardio and gymming and full-fledged weights. You can have your own program, but as long as you realize that your muscles and your lungs need to get back into shape, it is important that please start exercising. Take a clearance from your physician, but you need to restart exercising and build up on your stamina and your physical capacity.
Dr. Monica Mahajan, thank you so much for having this conversation for us and, explaining. I think what I like really in the conversation is you break it down and simplify it for all of us, which is very important. But the biggest takeaway really from this is do go and get your vaccine. Don't be, get into all the controversies that are there. Stay safe, take the vaccine and keep the mask on, I think. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.